Well, we mentioned this morning that weather might impact tonight's slate for MLB DFS, and, well, it already has, because one game has been postponed from the six-game slate for today. We were supposed to have seven because we had the Pirates and the Tigers initially at one point. That game's gone. Cleveland versus the White Sox is gone. It's messy. And on top of that, there weren't even that great pitching options to begin with. I wasn't super into Aaron Savali, but now he's off the table as well, so plenty to discuss and hopefully try to find something that works for tonight in MLB DFS. Welcome on into the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A. That's right here on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter channels. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Here, as always, to answer your questions live on air for today's main MLB DFS slate. No matter where you are watching for today, you can get questions in talking about today's slate. We'll take it from YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, no matter where you're watching. Get those questions in. We'll answer them live here on air to get you set for today's slate. Now, with the White Sox game being pushed back, lock has also been pushed back. It was initially 6:10. It's now 6:35. So again, I like to procrastinate. This is great for me because I'm generally setting lineups up until lock. So I now have less excuse if I forget to get those in before lock. So lock is now 6:35 p.m. We do still have 5 games available for tonight. And honestly, from a I want to use these guys perspective, there weren't really a ton of plays I really wanted to use for that game between the White Sox and Cleveland. So it doesn't bother me too much that game is gone. The problem is there's potentially another game that could be risky for today. We still have to monitor the Blue Jays and the Red Sox. That game looking kind of dicey. It's been raining pretty much all day, and it sounds like it's going to keep on raining through first pitch. As you can see here, via dark sky weather, got rain at 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m. That's not ideal. I know Kevin Roth of Roto Grinders this morning put this game as decently risky from a whether it'll play perspective. So it's possible they get that game going at some point because it sounds like there are a couple of storms firing around that one. So they might be able to start the game. I'm just not sure if they'll be able to end it given there are a couple of rain bands working around here. So although the first game that got lopped off the slate was not a super high impact one from me as far as players I want to use, that one would be. I do think that the Red Sox are interesting. I think that the Blue Jays more interesting personally between the two of them. So definitely still not in the clear from a weather perspective. Still keeping an eye on that Boston versus Toronto game to see what happens there. But, at least keeping tabs on things as of right now. We'll wait for some questions. Again, you can get questions in YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, no matter where you're watching. Get those questions in for today. Talk pitchers, stacks, one-offs, MLB DFS process, whatever you want to talk, we could talk about it for today. But until then, do you want to go through a couple of thoughts on this slate most generally? I, even before Savali got lopped off the slate, had Tyler Mahle as my number one pitcher facing Arizona. They're not a super imposing team. 89 WRC plus, not a big strikeout team, so it's not going to be a bump up from a matchup perspective for Mahle, but they're not a team that I fear, obviously, with an 89 WRC plus. And Mahle himself generates a lot of strikeouts. The sample I have here is for his 3 starts so far in 2021. The reason I went with those 3 starts as opposed to a larger sample is that Mahle's velocity is up a pretty decent amount so far this year. You can find that by going to FanGraphs, scrolling down to the pitch info section. We can see here that he throws his fastball pretty often. The velocity of the fastball up 1.2 miles per hour. Pretty good. So that's good. That means we should alter the way we're viewing Mahle. No massive pitch mix changes for him, but the velocity big enough where I did want to look at just this year. And even if you look at Mahle last year, numbers still really good, a 3.59 ERA, 4.07 skill interactive ERA, 30% strikeout rate. The only true concern I have about Mahle for tonight is the walk rate. He definitely does issue some walks, both last year and this year. The Diamondbacks, not a big walk team, but 9.4% is high enough where you get a little bit queasy about it. So I think if you were to list out a path to failure for Mahle, that's what you'd focus on. Is that walk rate? I would be a little bit scared. But Devontae just asked for a must play for tonight. I don't know if Mahle is a must play, but he's pretty dang close because I have him a good amount above the rest of the pitchers on this slate. So to me, if I'm ranking out pitchers, I think that Mahle is firmly one. I'm not going to say he is in a tier of his own. I think that Ian Anderson's a good play too, But I think I feel very good in saying that Malley will be my number one pitcher for tonight, just because I think I'm a big believer in the talent. Now, Anderson, I think that there's a good case to be made for him to be on par with Malley. He does get strikeouts both last year and this year. The numbers for Anderson are his 9 starts since the start of last year, 3.75 skill interactive ERA, 29% strikeout rate. He gets ground balls, so doesn't let up a lot of hard contact. But like Malley, he will issue some walks. He's also facing the Yankees. The Yankees have had some rough spots this year, but since the start of last year, the offense has a 118 WRC plus against righties. That's second best on the slate. Not a huge strikeout team. So if I'm picking matchups, I'd rather go with Malley's. I also believe a bit more in Malley from a strikeout perspective. So it's Malley firmly 1, Anderson firmly 2 for me for today. Devontae, I wouldn't label either of them as a must play, but I'd say like if you're just getting the MLB and you are deciding just playing like one or so lineup per night, I would say you want to stick to one of those two guys. So decide what your process says between Malley and Anderson. Mine says Malley as my number one pitcher for today. So I do like him. $8,800 on FanDuel for tonight. I think he's a top play. I'm going to go that way, but I think that Anderson, very defensible as well. Aaron says, hi. Hello, Aaron. Welcome back. Good to have you back once again. Let's talk about some stacks here. I think that my favorite stack for today is the Braves. Corey Kluber has had a rough go for sure since the start of 2019. That was kind of the beginning of the end for Kluber. His velocity this year has gotten better with each start. Each start that goes along, the zip gets better for Kluber, and that's a good thing for sure because we want to get Corey Kluber back to where he was previously, but it's back to where it was in 2019. If you look at his numbers in 2019 specifically, 4.68 skill interactive ERA, 5.80 ERA, his expected ERA was 5.13. Even if he gets back to what he was doing back in 2019, that's not necessarily a pitcher we have to avoid. He's letting up a lot of hard contact this year, getting some ground balls, but traditionally not a ground ball pitcher, so I'm not expecting that to necessarily stick around for Kluber. So what I'm expecting is Kluber to probably wind up being pretty similar to what he was back in 2019. That's a pitcher we can stack against, especially with a team as good as Atlanta. So I would say, from a stacking perspective, Atlanta's going to wind up being pretty high on my list because I like their offense, obviously. I like this match with Kluber, and they do gain a DH for today. Obviously, it's not very warm in New York for today, but it's not warm really anywhere. I believe the warmest temperature on this slate is 57 degrees. That's in Boston. That game might not even play, so every game could be in the 40s. So even though it is a downgrade to the bats to be in 40-degree temperatures, we're not getting good temps anywhere. So it's not a relative downgrade given the other things working on this slate. One guy I would probably label as being like close to a must play, given that I think pitcher salaries are low enough where you can afford Freddie Freeman. I would say Freddie Freeman pretty close to being a must play. So let's build out this Braves stack. Let's put Malley in there so we have an idea of what we're working with from a salary perspective. $32.75 left for bat or per hitter. Let's go Freeman first. I actually do like Travis d'Arnaud quite a bit. So I'm going to go with Freeman at catcher/first base. We're going to put d'Arnaud at utility because a lot of people, if they decide to stack the Braves, might not get both just because they're the same position. It does decrease your flexibility, but I think both are objectively just good plays. So we're going to go with both. Freeman, d'Arnaud. I'm going to get Marcell Ozuna in there, and we have a fourth Braves picker or hitter we can pick. So let's go over here to the Braves numbers. These are versus righties since the start of last year. Obviously, no Acuna for tonight, still dealing with that injury, so can't consider him. We're probably looking at like Albies, Adrianza batting leadoff. That's interesting. I don't need the savings, so I'm not going to go Adrianza personally, but it is interesting to see him up there. Okay, let's check out the numbers here for the Braves. Let's use batting sixth before we do that. Pablo Sandoval. All right. Sandoval's batting sixth. Dansby's batting seventh. Pablo Sandoval, 48% hard hit rate. That's not too bad. This is since the start of last year. 153 ISO. Swanson striking out a bit, but that number has come down. 189 ISO. I think we're going to wind up going with Swanson here. So I got 31-20 left, so I feel pretty good about that. Let's go Dansby at shortstop. Let's make sure we are not erring and taking him over Albies. Albies actually might be the better play. So it's either Albies or Swanson. as far as the fourth guy in your Braves stack. I lean Swanson. I guess it depends on what your second stack is if you need a shortstop in there, but whatever way you want to go, I think they're both pretty good options. Let's go Albies here because we don't actually need the savings. We'll go with that as the Brave stack. Alvin is asking, any Cubs or any Yankees that I'm on? Yankees, no, because I like Anderson so much. I think that he's a talented pitcher. That keeps me away from the Yankees. Again, it's like effectively a 4-game slate because I'm really worried about that Boston game playing. So, it's effectively a 4-game slate. I'm not going to write anyone off, but they're going to be lower on my list because I think that Anderson's pretty good. The Cubs are facing David Peterson. And the numbers I have in my sheet are from him early last year because that's when his pitch mix was most similar to what it has been this year. But this year's been really good. I stacked against him a couple of times. It very much did not work out the second time. It was fine the first time, but the second time, I think he had like 10 strikeouts against the Phillies. Yeah, 10 strikeouts against the Phillies over 6 innings. Dude is pretty nasty. Let's look at see if he made any changes for that game. Okay, so a lot of sinkers. We are anti-sinker, but if it works, it works. Worked out pretty well for Peterson there. The velocity for him, oh, wow, that went way up too. So big changes for him between the first and second start. I'm wondering if there might have been a low temperature for that game against the Phillies. But because he had that massive pop start in that second start, I'm not super inclined to stack against him. So a little bit scared of the Cubs. Cubs also, not necessarily swinging the best bats as of right now against lefties, 90 WRC plus. I'd have the Cubs not super high on my list. If we take out the Boston game, that takes away my, I think, third and fourth stacks of the day. So we're taking them out of play. It would probably be, we're going at the Yankees 1. I like the Reds number 2. If we take out the Red Sox and the Blue Jays, I'm probably going Mets next. Just because Zach Davies hasn't looked super right so far this year. Cubs might be after them, so that's probably where I'm at right now. But, yeah, I think that the Cubs are a little bit scary for me just because they've been a little bit rough. Devontae, you're missing out on basketball, too. I had a dude in my group win $25,000 yesterday. Wow. Are they going to share? You should ask. There's, shoot your shot. There's no harm in asking. At least ask them. Jason, Burns killed yesterday. Yeah, Burns is awesome. He's been awesome all year. He's been awesome since last year too. I have him in a dynasty league, which I am very happy about. It's actually both Woodruff and Burns. Very happy about the way things have gone there so far. And it could have gone poorly because the Padres are so good and the other ones didn't do so well. Taijuan Walker started pretty well, got burned later on. Hyun-Jin Ryu obviously wasn't great. So at least Burns did well and someone I want to go pretty heavy on. So hopefully that makes up for Ryu not doing super well and for the Cardinals hitters not doing great against Patrick Corbin too. Manuel is asking, do you have a tutorial somewhere creating a table for Fangraphs on what key stats to save for batters and pitchers? Great question, Manuel. So I actually do. It's a pretty old podcast. It was a podcast that I did during quarantine last year because I was really bored. But it talked about the key stats to focus on for hitters and pitchers. But if you want a general overview, Manuel, I think skill interactive ERA for pitchers is going to be your catch-all stat, strikeout rate, walk rate, barrel percentage. Those are the ones I look at there. For offenses, I do like a WRC plus. I don't look at hitter WRC plus versus handedness because that takes so long to stabilize. But I do look at it for full teams to get an idea of how they're hitting to start the year. Hard hit rate, fly ball rate, strikeout rate, walk rate, those numbers all tend to stabilize pretty quickly. So you can actually look at 2021 data alone there if you want to. I would not look at WRC plus necessarily yet, but those are the ways I'd be looking there. So he's asking about creating a table. Guessing that you're probably asking because of this. So I do want to just show this really briefly here for you, Manuel. You can scroll down. If you go to, let's go to teams. I'm not sure if they'll show up with our cover thing here. Okay, yeah, you can see it. So go to teams, click team batting stats for the year you want, and then you're going to go down here to custom leaderboards. What you do is you highlight something, like if you want age, you highlight it, click that right arrow, it'll take it into your right-hand side and put it into your custom leaderboard. If you want to get rid of it, you cross it out and you're good to go. Once you get the numbers you want here, you click Create Custom Table. It'll show up just like this. So I'd recommend checking Active Roster because it'll show you Like if you don't have that clicked and you have 2020 through 2021, it'll show Marcus Semion's numbers in the A's. But here, all of Marcus Semion's data goes to Toronto. So I'd recommend checking active roster, doing splits by versus righty versus lefty. I'm still doing 2020 to 2021 personally because we're still at a pretty small sample for 2021 specifically, but you can look at 2020 if you're looking at the right numbers, specifically hard hit rate, fly ball rate, strikeout rate, and walk rate. What do you think of Waka? This is from Jesus. So he's interesting because I don't know what to think about him. Actually, I don't know what to think about that game because he's facing Jacob Junis. And I think Jacob Junis is very similar where small sample looks very good. Will it stick? Let's dig into Waka's numbers here to see if it will work out. Yeah. Okay. Let's scroll down here. And look at the pitch mix for Waka so far this year. Fewer four-seamers, more cutters. That's kind of interesting. Okay. About the same for his off-speed stuff. Velocity up a bit on the cutter as well. That's interesting. Velocity higher in his changeup. Okay, so he's not super different from what he was doing last year. So let's look back to last year, see what Waka did there. 8 total outings, 7 starts, 24% strikeout rate, 11.3% swing and strike rate. So although the results were bad for Waka last year, actually did have some good / semi-interesting peripherals. I don't think the 33% strikeout rate will stick for Waka. I feel this could be very stupid. Like, I don't know. I probably shouldn't think that Jacob Junis' numbers will stick just because, it's a very small sample. He was a worse pitcher from a strikeout rate perspective last year than Waka was. The true answer, Jesus, is I don't know. And I feel bad saying that. But I honestly have no idea if Waka's legit. Like, you look at the numbers here. The numbers I have are for, I believe it's the 3 outings he's had this year. They look good. I just don't know if they'll stick. Jacob Junis, kind of the same thing. For some reason, I feel better about Junis' numbers sticking. He's facing a high strikeout team. Like, if we're talking about exposures for tonight, if you're playing 10 lineups, I'm thinking I'm probably going 5 Malley, 4 Anderson, maybe even 6-3 in favor of Malley, and then maybe leaving 1 open for Junis. Like, I want to have minimal exposure to Jacob Junis, just because it could go very poorly. Like, he could score negative points, but I think there's enough there. You could view Michael Wacha, I think, in a very similar vein. For some reason, I don't know why I think I favor Junis, but I think Wacha is very similar. So I know it's a very wishy-washy answer, Jesus. I'm sorry. But I don't know with those two guys. I'm okay getting a little bit of Junis, but I don't want to go more than a little bit. Maybe I missed it, but what are the other options to stack with Atlanta? Okay, yes, I didn't actually talk about the other options to stack with Atlanta. So Atlanta's number 1. I think the Reds are number 2. Facing Merrill Kelly lets up a lot of balls in play. Just add up these two numbers, strikeout rate and walk rate. Subtract that from 100. You're going to get the percentage of plate appearances roughly that results in a ball in play. And against Kelly, it's a lot. He also allows an 11.3% barrel rate. This is since the start of last year, so an 8-start sample. He lets up a lot of hard contact. The Reds provide a lot of hard contact. So Devontae, for me, it's Braves 1, Reds 2. From a stacking perspective, if we get the all clear on Boston, I would go with the Blue Jays next, followed by the Red Sox. Guessing we're probably not going to get that, though, so I would lean towards the Cubs and Mets as being the next options up from a stacking perspective. Alvin, so if you were looking at what the Braves did versus righties this year, only focus on fly ball rate instead of WOBA. So I think from a team-wide perspective, you can look at those. I look at WRC Plus because WRC Plus accounts for park. When the Giants are playing on the road, it'll show them as being, what they are as opposed to what they've done in San Francisco. So I go to WRC Plus because it does account for park. It's also just easier to comprehend with 100 being average and, 100 higher than that being average. So, Alvin, I will look at WRC Plus as being a number that is okay to look at this time of the year because, let's look at the numbers here. Let's pull up just 2021. We're going to see, probably 700 or so plate appearances per team versus righties so far this year. Not quite 700, but it's a lot. That's enough where I can look at it. And the teams at the top of this leaderboard aren't going to be super surprising. They're the teams that have been playing super well, and they're probably going to, I could see them sustaining that. So I think you can look at WRC Plus. My main focal point would be the other ones, though, just because they stabilize more quickly and they're not going to be as fluky as WRC Plus will be. So that's my main focus, especially strikeout rate. Strikeout rate right now is awesome. Like, you've got more than enough data to lean on there. So you can definitely look at strikeout rate for this year. I would definitely say if you're looking at handedness stuff, if you're looking at lefties, definitely include 2020 there, because the 2021 numbers versus lefties are going to be really, really small. Even like if you include the 2020 data, it's still pretty small. Like, we got 84 plate appearances for Milwaukee against lefties. That's not enough. So that's why I skew towards 2020 and 2021. I think that you can look at WRC Plus for this year. It just, I feel better about the numbers that stabilize more quickly. Brad is asking, if we go with the Braves stack, who do you like to pitch? I like Malley a lot. He gets strikeouts. He got strikeouts last year, getting strikeouts this year. So Malley's number 1, Anderson number 2 for me, from a stacking perspective, or from a pitching perspective. And both those guys work really well with the Braves stack, because you can get to Freeman very easily. If you use them, you can get to Freeman no matter who you use, but it does help either way. Sonny, got any home run predictions for tonight? All right. Jesse Winker. He has 1 home run this year. He's going to make it 3 home runs tonight. Not 3 home runs just tonight, but he's going to get 3 home runs for the season. Jesse Winker going yard twice against Merrill Kelly. Write it down. The fly ball rate for Jesse Winker is down, or the ground ball rate is down to like 36% or so far, I think, this year. That's awesome. I'm going to take that every time. You know, we talk about Vlad, which we should. Vlad's awesome. I love Vlad. Use Vlad tonight if you can. But Jesse Winker is also kind of quietly doing a swing change here, because the launch angle is up about 3.3 degrees. The ground ball rate is down 12 percentage points. He's had a lot of barrels so far, 15.2% barrel rate. Jesse Winker, 1 home run so far this year. When you refresh this page tomorrow, that'll be 3. Not actually, but I would pick him. If you want to get a little bit weird, I think that Winker makes a lot of sense. I think Tyler Naquin, actually, I haven't checked the Reds lineup yet. He might not be in there. But the lineup's not out because they have that weird thing. They have to finish the suspended game first. We're not going to know who's playing probably until like right before lock, even that. So that's a bit annoying and a bit concerning, but I think it's worth the risk. So Jesse Winker going yard tonight for you, Sonny. Jason, if you talked about David Peterson, talk about it a bit in passing about why I'm not super enthusiastic about the Cubs. I'm also not itching to use David Peterson for tonight, just because, I don't know, I'm still worried about the numbers sticking. Again, he's made changes this year, and the changes look pretty legit. And I think the good thing for him is that he did it twice against the Phillies. If you can face the same lineup twice and dominate them the second time, that does bode pretty well for you. 36% strikeout rate, a 5% walk rate. He is letting up a lot of hard contact, which is a little bit scary, and that's probably why I'm not super enthused to go there. But I think that with Peterson, Jason, I'd rather stay on the sidelines, both in terms of stacking against him and in using him as a pitcher. I'm kind of trying to wait and see what happens first. I know that's, again, not the best answer, but that's where I'm at right now. I'd rank the Mets above the Cubs from a stacking perspective, but also not super itchy to go Peterson as a pitcher as of yet. Devontae, would you mind giving me tips on my lineup? I will always give tips. I can never give like a full lineup because that's like sketchy, just like an ethics perspective. But like if you say, hey, you know, what are your thoughts on Freddie Freeman? I'll always give my thoughts. So feel free to hit me up on Twitter at JimSannes, JIMSANNES. More than happy to give any insights there. If you have specific questions about stuff, specific questions about pitchers and stuff, totally fine. Also like roster construction stuff, like, hey, should I be jamming in 4 players from the stack? The answer will be yes. The answer will always be yes to that. But like lineup-based questions, totally free. Absolutely welcome those questions for sure. You can ask him here or on Twitter, wherever is easiest for you. Jason said he's going to try to find that tutorial. Yeah, I can try to find the link. It was a long time ago, and it's not super easy to search through our content management system over on numberFire, but I'll try. If you tweet at me and ask for the links, I'll try to find them. But there is a full podcast dedicated to which stats to look at, why to look at those stats. I think it talks about split stats as well and why you want to proceed with caution with some of those. So, Jason, hit me up on Twitter. Remind me, and I will – I think you're on Twitter. If you are, hit me up there, and I'll try to get those out to you to recirculate those podcasts as well. Because, you know, if you're getting new to DFS, they can be pretty helpful there. That is all the time that we have for today. Actually, one from Alvin. 4-3-1 with Braves, Reds, and Mets if the Blue Jays and Red Sox game rains out. Yes, I think that's a good idea. I'm good with that. Jason was reminding me not to procrastinate. Thank you. I appreciate that, and I need that. Devontae decided to stack Tampa Bay as well. Yeah, I mean, like, Junis is a small sample, so I think that totally okay. I can understand that for sure. I personally am not super enthused about Tampa Bay, probably because they've been terrible to me recently. So maybe it's just like hurt feelings that they've been so bad, but it's effectively a 4-game slate given the Boston and Toronto situation. So I can't down talk Tampa Bay too much. They're not super high on my list, but I understand it. Like, Junis could implode. So I think that makes sense, Devontae. I would say go with what your gut says there. Jack, first time viewer and new listener, loving it so far. Thought the live stream started at 4 p.m. Central. So I'm from Central Time originally, grew up in Minnesota. Welcome. I think that from a sports perspective, East Coast time is terrible. So Jack, I'm jealous, and I wish I were in Central Time as well. Honestly, like, I've only been to the West Coast 3 times in my life, but having MLB lock at 4 p.m. was a dream come true. So Jack is good. West is better. That's the way I'd say that for today. But yeah, 4 p.m. Eastern every weekday. You're on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're subscribed on YouTube, you get a push notification. That can help you out too, to get you in the right time zone there. That is all that we have for today. We're actually back today at 6 p.m. Eastern with myself and JJ Zacharyson. We're going to have a stream here on YouTube giving away stuff because numberFire just hit his 1 millionth registered user. So to celebrate, we're giving away FanDuel credits, numberFire premium subscriptions if you want access to this heat chart over here. Basically the same thing that I use, a little bit different. Devontae says East Coast is superior. False. Totally false. How dare you? This is part of numberFire Premium, giving away numberFire Premium. I think they're giving away a jersey too. Either way, tune back in at 6 p.m. Eastern today. Unfortunately, it's Eastern. Regardless, we'll work with it. But back at 6 p.m. today, giveaways, talking about the NFL draft. You can quiz JJ on his rookie rankings. All that coming up today, 6 p.m. Eastern, right here in the same place. So make sure you are subscribed. If you have questions for me or want links to those podcasts I mentioned, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in and for the good questions. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow. Good luck tonight. This has been the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A.